Okay, today we are going to be looking at how to add fractions. So we're going to start off here at looking at my manipulatives, because we're going to use these manipulatives to explain why we do the rules we do in math when adding fractions. So starting off here, this is a 1. We have a 1/2 because two of these, 1, 2, makes up the 1. So that's why this is equal to only half of that. Now this is 1/3 because it'll take 3 of these to make up the whole. So if I take 3 of these here, 1, 2, oh, move that there, and then 1/3, we get the whole. Okay? And we make 4 of these to make up the whole, 6 of these to make up the whole, and 12 of these. That's why this is 1/4, 1/6, and 1/12. So let's take a look at our very first question here. Our first question, we're going to look at 1/4 plus 1/2. Okay? So I look at this, I have a half and a quarter. Now it's hard to understand what these mean like this. Some of you could see right away and going, hey, that's 3/4. But, well, yeah, it is. So basically, in order to make sense of this, we are going to make this half here into quarters. So this is really like saying 1/4 plus 2/4, and that's going to be equal to 3/4. Okay? Because we just add the tops together, because that gives us 3/4. So we're done the first example. Now let's take a look at my second example. In this one here, I'm going to have 3/4 plus 2/3. So we have 3/4, and we are going to add 2/3. We have 2/3 there. Now, here's the problem. I look at this, I put this in there, this, nope, doesn't fit. Let's try maybe with these here. Okay, maybe, and I look at it, nope, it doesn't quite make the shape we want. I put this over top, maybe a little bit, it's close, and then I have this here, but now that's a weird shape. So I have to really think about what's happening here. These are very hard to combine. So in order to combine these, I have to make them into equal pieces, pieces that are more similar. So I'm going to look at 12ths here. So let's first look at a 3/4. A 3/4 is made up of 1, or a quarter is made up of 1, 2, and then I look right there, I can fit a 1/3 12th. So then each of these 3/4 is 3/12. So I end up having 3/12 and another 3/12 and another 3/12. That's the same thing as 9/12. Okay? So I'm going to get 9 of these 12ths here. 3, 6, 9. So I have 9/12. Now let's take a look at my 2/3. Well, for these 2/3, if we were to check this out, for each third, we would need a total of 4 of these. 1, and I'm going to go, whoops, 2, and here's 3, and then there's one more we need for a 4th. So this one needs 4. So each third is 4/12. So there's 1/3 gone, and we need 4 more 12ths to make up the other third. Okay? So altogether, we have 2/3 is 2 4/12, so that's the same thing as having plus 8/12. Okay? Now, when we look at this, we could add them. How many 12ths do I have? Well, I have 9 here and 8 there. That's going to give me 17/12. Okay? And with these 17/12, well, it takes 12 of these guys, we know, to make up one of those. So that's going to give me 1, and we're going to have 5 left, and 5 twelfths is going to be my answer if I add these up. All right, so now let's take a look at our next problem. Here we're going to look at 1/3 plus 1/4. So let's grab a third and a fourth. I have 1/4 and 1/3. Now we put these together, it gives me a weird shape. So I know exactly what this means, I want to make these into common shapes. Well, we already learned that twelfths work for both, and a quarter is equal to 3/12 because I put these together and I'm going to get a total of 3 of these make, whoops, here we go, a quarter. So right there we have 3 that made a quarter. So we have, this is really 3/12, 3/12, and, whoops, that's pretty sloppy, 3/12, and we're going to look at the third. The third, if you remember, is made up of 4. So I'm going to put 2 here, whoopsie, and then we have another 2 here. Just like that. So altogether, I have, this is going to be 4/12. We're adding these together. Now if I add these together, this is pretty easy to figure out. I'm going to have a total of 7/12. Okay? Let's look at another one. We're going to look at 2/3 plus 1/2. So here's my half, and I want 2/3. So we want 2 1/3. 1, 2. Okay? We put these together like this. This one works out pretty fine, actually, but it's a bit bigger than a whole. So I look at this. It is a bit bigger than a whole. It is 1 whole and 1/6. Interesting. So we know this is equal to 1 and 1/6. Because remember, this screen is a sixth. Now, maybe we could figure this out by making it improper. And what we were doing before was we were finding shapes that make up each of these. Well, I'm going to look at sixths here. We have 2. We need common denominators because we want the same size. So 2/6 is equal to each third. So we're going to put 6 there for that third. And we have 2 for this one here as well. Now let's look at a half. How many 6 make up a half? I have 1, 2, and 3. Okay? So now, if I look at this all together, I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. So all together, like we said, this here was, this is 3/6, and this is going to be 4/6, as we did earlier, and that's going to end up giving us altogether 7/6, which is the same as 1 and 1/6, right? Because we know we have a whole and then 1/6 left over. All right, now let's look at my last question. We're going to go 1 and 1/3 plus 3/4. So let's take a look at this here. We have 1 and 1/3, and we want to add 3/4. So we're adding 3/4. Okay? So looking at this already, we already know we have a whole. Okay? So it's really going 1/3 plus 3/4. Now remember, these don't kind of add up very well. If I'm looking at this, it goes like that, and now this guy here, well, it kind of fits in a bit, but not that nicely, does it? Okay? So what we're going to do is we're going to make common denominators again. So if you remember, each one of these, each quarter is 3/12. And we go 3/12. And each third is 4/12. So essentially, I have 1 and 4/12 plus, and we're going to have, altogether, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 9/12 is equal to 1 and, well, altogether now, we have 13, 1 and 13/12, which is the same as, well, we have 13/12, 12 of these make a whole, 2 and 1/12. Okay? So let's review here. Basically, what we learned we must do is every time we are adding fractions, we must have common denominators. Once we have common denominators, we can add them together, because then we're looking at things with the same size, and we can add them together and figure out how many wholes we get. If they are different sizes, it's hard to figure out exactly what we have, okay? Because even if I look at this, if I go 1/3 plus 1/4, just like this here, let's move it like that. Well, that's good, but it's hard to figure out how much of this shape we have. It's a lot easier to look at it in terms of common denominators. So we want to have all of our fractions being in the same proportion, you might say, or ratio, so the same size. So we're breaking them down to that. So in order to do that, this fraction here is actually equivalent to 9/12, right? All we do is we multiply this by 3, multiply this by 3, and we get 9/12. We're keeping the ratio the same. This fraction here is the same as 4/12. We multiply this by 4, multiply this by 4, and we get 9/12 and 4/12. Okay, same thing as if we looked at the question before. We said 1/6 was the common thing. So times this by 2, times this by 2, and we get 4/6. Times this by 3, times this by 3, and we get 3/6. So basically what we want to do is look at my denominators and find the lowest common denominator by them. And whatever we have to multiply it by, that's how we're going to get. That's what we're going to multiply the top by as well. And that's kind of explaining why we do what we do to add fractions.